Good evening, everyone. My name is Melissa Muscat, and I'm honored to serve as chair of UJA Women's Philanthropy for the 2020 annual campaign, alongside my vice chair, Perry Kirschenblatt. Shana Tova. I hope you and your families are well and have been able to spend time together over the holidays. I'd love to welcome you now to UJA Young Women's Leadership Presents Career Planning for Recent Graduates. To all of you who have joined us this evening, we appreciate you being part and a vital part of UJA. As female leaders, you will shape the future of the Jewish community in Toronto, and we need each one of you now more than ever. Please allow me to give you a quick update on what is happening at UJA. Obviously, right now, the biggest concern facing our community is the effect of the pandemic on our most vulnerable members. This is why UJA launched the Emergency Campaign for Community Resilience, so our Jewish social service agencies can continue to help those in need and to keep Jewish youth connected to essential Jewish experiences. We've managed to help thousands in need over the past 6 months, but there are still many more who need our help. As the pandemic goes on, the emotional, mental, and financial strain will intensify for many as government benefits and savings run out. As of today, and I'm proud to say this, 7,925 community members have contributed a collective total of more than $64.4 million toward the $85 million projected community needs. We are awed by how quickly this community came together, but we also realize how far we still need to go. We have been so inspired by the many young women throughout our community who have stepped up as leaders in this moment of crisis. By giving so generously of their time and funds to help those who have been hit hardest by the COVID-19 crisis, Jewish women across our city are making a real difference in the lives of so many. It gives us tremendous confidence and hope for the future. As you navigate the next stages of your lives, whether it be looking for your first job, creating a new business, or reaching new heights in your profession, we thank you for keeping your community in your plans, as we are looking to you to continue the good work that the most vulnerable rely on so desperately. So now, I would like to introduce you to one of our event co-chairs, Emily Turkinitz.
Thank you, Melissa. Hi, everyone. Once again, welcome to UJA Young Women's Leadership Presents Career Planning for Recent Graduates. My co-chair, Samantha Richmond, and I would like to thank everyone involved for working tirelessly for UJA Women's Philanthropy and putting together this amazing webinar. We would also like to thank tonight's moderator, Jillian Tishman. Jillian Tishman is a consultant with TDS Personnel, a recruitment agency in Toronto. Jillian joined TDS after spending nearly a decade in the insurance industry. With degrees in kinesiology and prosthetics and orthotics, Jillian has a natural curiosity which lends itself to conversation and developing the bigger picture. She understands what candidates are looking for in a role from their current or prospective employers and what motivates them to make a move or to stay put. Jillian recruits for positions across all industries and at every level. Jillian has established herself in being a reputable recruiter, having successfully staffed talent at several A-list clients in Toronto. And now I will pass it over to Samantha, who will introduce our panelists for this event.
We would also like to thank our special guests this evening, Susan Harris and Kim Smiley. Since 1998, Susan Harris has been the president and CEO of Executive Coaching Associates. She is a consultant with more than 25 years of experience coaching. She has worked with over 50 organizations in her capacity as executive coach. Susan's career includes serving as vice president, organizational development for MDS Inc., quality/organizational effectiveness advisor with Shell Canada Limited, and as senior consultant with Clarkson Gordon/Woods Gordon. Susan holds a Master of Business Administration from the University of Western Ontario and a Master of Social Work from the University of Toronto. Her undergraduate degree is from McGill University. Susan sits on 2 volunteer boards and supports many charities. Our other esteemed guest is Kim Smiley. Kim is igniting a compassion and fashion revolution. Harvard-educated fashion designer, empathy educator, and artist, Kim has attracted international media attention for stitching together fashion with social justice. Dubbed the Queen of Empathy, Kim is spreading beauty with a purpose, inspiring over 260,000 followers in over 75 countries. In October 2020, Kim is opening up a flagship store on Eglinton Avenue West. Kim is also the former VP of Donor Development at our very own UJA Federation. Kim used her social consciousness to make a difference in our very own, the Jewish community.
Hi everyone, I'm Jillian Tishman. I'm your moderator for tonight. Thank you so much, Emily and Samantha, for having us here tonight. We really appreciate it. I'd like to encourage you all to type any questions you might have in the chat box. You can see a little button at the bottom of your screen that says chat, and we'll be sure to answer your questions at the end. I thought I would start tonight by telling you a little bit about myself and share with you a bit about my story. Funny thing is, not too long ago, I've been where you are. I was a new graduate. I went to Western and got a degree in kinesiology. And I decided, okay, I'm going to be a chiropractor. So in third year university, I applied for chiropractic college on a whim, just thinking, I wonder what the application is like. I ended up getting in. I had no clue that was going to happen. And that was the first time in my life I had been faced with the biggest challenge. Do I take that path and leave Western and only get a 3-year degree and go for chiropractics? Or do I stay at Western, continue to get my kinesiology honors degree, and see what the future holds? I chose to go with the latter. In the end, I graduated from Western with my kinesiology degree, and I went on to pursue a master's degree in prosthetics and orthotics from George Brown College. What's so interesting is my whole life, I was on a straight and narrow path. I knew exactly what I wanted to be when I grew up. I knew exactly how I was going to get there. And my parents left me alone. I never needed to be motivated. I was a great student. And I guess my parents felt, well, she knows what she's doing. We don't really need to guide her or help her at all. Funny enough and ironic enough, after graduate school, that all changed for me. Up until this point, like I said, all my dreams came true. Until when I graduated from my master's program and I had to become a resident. However, there were no residencies for me here in Toronto. My personal life had taken off. I had just gotten married. I was living in a house in Midtown Toronto, lucky enough to have one, and lucky enough to be married to a partner who was completely supportive in my career dreams and aspirations. I'll say though, that was the most challenging year of my life, not only being a newlywed, but also the pressures of trying to figure out where I was going in my life as I was sitting on our couch, not having a job and not bringing any income into our home. It was really frustrating and I was really down. I ended up falling back on teaching swimming and volunteering at many hospitals like Holland Bloorview and Sick Kids in the prosthetics and orthotics department. It wasn't until one day when my mom came over and she said, you know, I feel just as sadly as you, and it's okay to grieve this lost career, and I'm sorry it didn't work out, but it's time to pick yourself up and find another path. And I'll tell you, that was the first time I had to reinvent myself, a feeling I'm really familiar with. So I fell back on my kin degree and off to the insurance industry I went, getting a job at a large insurance company where I stayed for nearly a decade, assessing long-term and short-term disability claims. While there, I learned so much about myself, about people, how to be empathetic. I learned a ton about the law. I often participated in a ton of mediations and legal files, which was really interesting. But again, something inside of me wasn't fulfilled. I only realized that when I was on maternity leave. I have 2 young kids, and I only realized that when I was on maternity leave, when I would meet people, new people, and they'd say, oh, what do you do for a living? And I would share, oh, it's not important. And I really started to, I guess, believe that what I did was not important, and I was miserable. And it started bleeding into every aspect of my life, affecting my relationships with my family, my relationships with my spouse, my relationships with my kids, my friends. And I became a shell of myself, and it was awful. If you know me, then you know that is not who I am. So after a long journey, after speaking to many people, I carried a notebook with me everywhere I went with a pen, and I would just speak to everybody I encountered under the sun, asking them for their story. I ended up finding an opportunity where I am now as a recruiter or a consultant with TDS personnel. I've only been with TDS for 2.5 years. However, this job and this career has changed my life. I love what I do. I feel like I'm a true matchmaker for jobs. I feel like I connect people to their dreams, and I just love giving back. It's my way to help people on their path, as so many people helped me along mine. I think if I were to be in your shoes now, I would ask myself, what kind of life do I want to have? Instead of, where do I see myself in 5 years? I think that question really makes a big difference. So again, I will encourage you to put all your questions in the chat for tonight. And I think it's time that we move on to meet Susan and see what she has to say. Susan? We're just waiting for Susan to come on, guys. So in the meantime, I'm happy to share with you some additional information. You know, I think what's really interesting about my journey is, like I said, it was super linear my whole life until I was about 23 years old. And then I was thrown for taken for a loop and thrown, I felt like, under a bus. And I think what I learned is when you're the most vulnerable and when you're standing on the edge, do you take that jump and jump into that water or jump off of that cliff, if you will, or you turn around and walk away? And I think the biggest thing I would say is that when you are vulnerable and you are challenged the most and you're feeling like that, even though it's uncomfortable, that's when you grow the most, and that is when the biggest changes happen within you. And that's when you really go to the next level and push yourself to do more. I really feel like if I were to talk to my 22 to 25-year-old self, never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be a recruiter. But I love what I do. Susan, are you ready to join us?
I think I'm going to hop on first here, if that's okay. It's always a pleasure to do anything with UJA. I always feel like I'm coming home. I'm going to give you the broad highlights of my career, and then I'm going to give you 7 takeaways that would have been really helpful to me when I was in your position, just beginning off and navigating my career path. And then at the end, feel free to ask any questions that pique your interest about any of the stuff that we're talking about tonight. I was an artist from a really early age. I loved art, but I never thought that I could make a career out of doing it. And my parents taught me very early on that I needed to be self-sufficient and that I should never depend on anyone else for my career. So although I loved art, I chose instead to set my sights on becoming a professor. And academia was a passion. I loved going to school. I had a dream of going to Harvard University, and I was able to fulfill that dream and do my graduate work there. After graduating, I moved on to do a fellowship in Tokyo and did my postgraduate work there. But interestingly enough, things often don't end up the way you planned. And for a series, just with a series of twists and turns, I ended up not being a professor after all. And I ended up landing in the nonprofit sector, where I worked for 13 years. I started off at the Montreal Holocaust Memorial Center and Museum, and then I moved on to Habitat for Humanity. And then finally, as you heard, I ended up at UJA Federation, where that was actually my last job in nonprofit. But during my tenure at UJA, I actually started moonlighting as a fashion designer. And for the last 2 years that I was at UJA, I spent, before I went into work, after work and all my weekends on pursuing this dream I had to be a jewelry designer. And in 2014, I launched my brand at World Mastercard Fashion Week. And I felt like a big imposter. I was a VP at UJA, and then I took 2 vacation days off to go to Fashion Week to present my collection. But it actually was received really well. And within about, I'd say, 10 months after launching my line at Fashion Week, I ended up resigning from my position at UJA in order to pursue this dream that I had full time of becoming a fashion designer. It was a huge plunge. It was incredibly scary, but I just took the leap and I jumped into it wholeheartedly. A few months later, because I just didn't want to focus on one thing, that's just my personality, I launched an idea that had been marinating in my imagination for 5 years called the empathy effect, which you heard a little bit about. It became an international movement to spark empathy in public and private life. And I formed it into a nonprofit a couple of years later. As you heard as well in the introductions, my son is, my 4-year-old son is trying to come in the room right now, so it's a little distracting. That in about 2 weeks, I'm opening a flagship store in Eglinton Avenue West, what will ultimately be a lifestyle brand under my name, Kim Smiley. So it's just going to be a little bit west of the Allen on Eglinton, but it's also going to be a hub for teaching empathy. So that's a quick recap of my career. But what I really want to share with you are some epiphanies that I had and that would have been really helpful to me when I was starting out. So first one off is that the most interesting career paths that I've seen are not linear. Like you heard from Jillian, they're full of twists and turns. I was an artist training to be a professor who found myself in the nonprofit sector moonlighting as a designer turned social entrepreneur who started an empathy movement and then founded a nonprofit. And now I'm opening a flagship lifestyle brand. So I encourage you to be open to the infinite possibilities of your path. I never thought I would end up where I am now, but the one thing that was a constant for me that never changed was, this is my second point, never doubt your infinite capacity for greatness, because each of you has something very extraordinary about you, and you just need to get in touch with that spark in order to share it with the world. I want you to block out the naysayers and anyone who tells you that your goals are unrealistic, implausible, or impossible. Believe that you can manifest anything that you set your heart and mind on achieving. If I would have listened to the detractors in my life, I would have never attended Harvard, started my own business as a designer, or created my own nonprofit. Often it's not about your qualifications, it's about your confidence. And as women, we tend to really dim our light because it makes other people uncomfortable when we shine. But I want you to train yourself right now and do this as early as possible in your career to let your light shine as brightly as possible with no apologies or explanations. My concrete advice to you is to create a vision board of what you want to achieve and pursue this vision with relentless determination. The third thing I want to share with you is that failure is not what you think it is. Sometimes what masquerades as failure is actually your greatest opportunity in disguise. The empathy effect was rejected by the nonprofit I worked for when I pitched it to them, and I was completely crushed. I was devastated because I poured my heart and soul into that proposal. But this rejection propelled the creation of something that has had exponentially greater impact than it would have within the confines of my job. The fourth thing I want to share with you is that patience has become a lost art. We live in a now or never time, although I think COVID is kind of reshaping that. But it took me 7 years to build my business up to what it is today. And it took me 5 years to get the empathy effect off the ground. The bigger the idea, the more time that it often takes to come to fruition. Like the maxim says, there is no such thing as an overnight success, and patience and perseverance are everything. This is a big one, my fifth point. If you are ambitious, choose a life partner that is wildly supportive. I was kind of late to the party with settling down, but waiting for the right person was one of the smartest moves I've ever made, not just for my personal life, but for my career. Whom you choose to spend your life with will be the most important factor in your career, and I cannot overstress this enough. Being an entrepreneur has colossal ups and downs, and my husband, Matthew, has been a constant source of encouragement and support for me. It may sound hyperbolic, but if you are ambitious, choose a partner that will be your greatest champion, or don't choose a partner at all. 6, I want to encourage you to always lead with empathy. No matter how hopeless you feel, no matter how in your head you are, guide yourself with empathy and always be on the lookout for ways to uplift others. When I moved home to Montreal after living in the US, I got rejection after rejection after rejection for job opportunities. I felt like I couldn't even get an interview. It was so demoralizing. When I got a rejection from Habitat for Humanity, I was living in Montreal at the time. The job was in Toronto, and I decided that's it. I'm going to pack my bags. I'm going to move to Toronto, and I am going to set my sights and do everything I have to get work in Toronto. The very next week I was in Toronto, I was at a networking event, and I saw this guy standing alone at the event, and he looked very awkward, and he looked kind of shy and like he didn't know anyone. He was really out of place. So in an effort to make this guy feel more at ease, I approached him and said hi and introduced myself. Turns out he was the CEO of Habitat for Humanity Toronto, the person who had written my rejection letter not a week before. Within 4 weeks, I was the director of marketing and fundraising at Habitat. And within 8 months, I was the vice president of the department. Empathy opened the door for me, and it always has, and I know it will for you too. So always try to put yourself in the shoes of other people and try to lead with empathy, not just in your career, but personally as well. The last thing I want to tell you is that don't believe that you have to choose either profit or purpose for your career. Many people told me I was super naive to think that I could marry the two and pursue both, but it's not true. You can marry profit and purpose in your career. You just need to get the balance right and take time and the commitment and pursue it with passion. My company trains and employs refugees and newcomers, pays a fair trade wage, and gives back to the community through our shows. More and more companies are realizing that marrying profit with purpose is the wave of the future. It's called social enterprise. And I would really love to explore it more if anyone's interested in talking about this, either tonight or afterwards. I'm always available at Kim Smiley on Instagram or however you want to reach me. Thanks again for giving me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm excited to hear what you guys are working on, and we're really happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Susan, you can start.
Thank you. First of all, I want to wish everybody Shana Tova and sending you my warmest wishes, even though I don't know all of you, for a sweet, healthy, and safe new year. I know it's been a challenging one for all of us. I also have to apologize to UJA for the technical glitch tonight. And now I'm on, so I'll get started. I'm going to take a little bit of a different perspective than Kim because we've had different career paths. I am in a corporate role right now, but worked as a social worker in my first career in the public sector. And so having said that, I'd like to tell you that careers in today's society are very fluid, and that the expectation that you only have one career in your life is entirely unrealistic. And in fact, most of us change so much in our 20s and early 30s, and we end up in places that we never could have imagined. So don't worry if you feel that you're miscast in your role, or that you can't possibly see yourself doing what you are now doing in 5, 10, or even 2 years from now. I changed my career path twice. Once in my mid-20s, when I was steeped in student debt, and at a time it was very uncommon to change careers. And then in my late 30s, I decided that corporate life was not for me, having spent 14 years in senior positions in 3 different organizations. I decided that it was misaligned with my values, and it was incompatible with raising young children and a husband who was commuting from New York City. So in my late 30s, I changed careers again. I used a lot of visual imagery to do this. I imagined myself in my 40s, my 50s, my 60s, doing exactly what I'm doing now. I actually saw myself being an executive coach, marrying my background of therapeutic social work and my business career, and helping people and organizations achieve their full potential, working with teams on sites to get their strategy. And now I'm even on a third career, which is helping public boards also maximize their potential and working with chairs of boards to discern board composition. So in effect, I've had 2 careers and now I'm on my 3rd iteration. And even though I'm much older than you, I feel that my career is still evolving in a different way. As we age, different things become important to us, and our work has to reflect our changing values and our life situations. For now, you might want to think about the 3 most important things to you in a job and what would give you the most intellectual and emotional satisfaction. I actually used, as I said earlier, both visual imagery and my own balance sheet to discern what it was that I would be happy doing. And on a balance sheet, for those of you who are taking accounting, I had a ledger, and on the left-hand side of that page, I had a short-term horizon, which was a 0 to 5 years, a medium term, which was 10 years, and then 10 years out. I thought very carefully after I left social work and to do my MBA about the things that would be important to me in my late 20s and 30s from a physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual perspective. And then on the other side of the ledger, I thought about what I wanted my professional life to look like. What did I want to be known for? Where did I want to work? What were my geographical preferences? What was the nature of the work that I wanted to do? How much money did I want to make? And so once I had thought very carefully about what my personal vision was, I was able to articulate what exactly it was that I wanted to do. And then I put the steps in place to do that. Now, I know and I understand that COVID has been very limiting to many people, but COVID will not hopefully be with us forever, and life is going on. Many companies, believe it or not, still have the budgets for new hires and raises, and doing the legwork before exploring and asking can go a long way in helping you get what you want. Negotiating an interesting assignment or a new job within the company or even a salary raise should be thought of a conversation rather than a daunting challenge in which you are steering the relationship to your needs and your realities. You need at this time to be very concrete about what it is that you are looking for. Have your objectives ready before you start to look for a job, before you start any conversation about employment, a new assignment, a change, or even a salary raise. When you are looking for a job, the best way to gather information is to ask open-ended questions, such as, tell me your biggest needs for this position, or tell me about the last superstar you hired and what made them so great. That will help you be clear about what you should be emphasizing about yourself and what you can offer. Your most important task when you're networking or job searching, or even finding a different space in the organization in which you work, is to be an inquirer. Whether to negotiate your raise, a new job, or even the option to continue to work from home, be ready to counter any resistance that you might get or any hesitations by again asking the right questions. What are some of your concerns? Or in the case of a job interview, can I give you an example of how I can contribute? So all the research shows us that when we ask, and we as women don't ask enough, we need to be optimistic, specific, and justifiable. So when you're negotiating a starting salary or a new assignment or a raise or even an internship, it's vital that you canvass your network and find out what other people are doing in that same position and even what the median salary levels for that position might be. And that also goes for a raise for those of you who are working in organizations right now. And I know that because of COVID and the faltering economy, that you may be worried about salary freezes in the organizations you're looking at, but there is frequently much more money in budgets than you know. Often, it's only distributed to those who actually ask. When you're looking for a job or a change, It's also vital that you emphasize your unique experiences and be really clear about what drives you, what your purpose is, who you are, and who you stand for. At this point in your career, learning and growing and the ability to work hard in the right place is just more important than anything. I would also encourage you to look beyond the paycheck, at least initially. I was so inspired by Kim's story about how she persisted despite the odds against her and was able to change tracks to build her own reality. Job hunting requires you to tell a story about yourself and your accomplishments. And if you don't tell that story, nobody else will. Give the examples of everything that you've done that benefited a group, a community such as UJA, a company, or even helping an individual. This is especially important for women who are more likely to talk about accomplishments in a very inclusive way that sometimes can obscure their own contribution. The secret sauce here is to be proud of your achievements and don't be afraid to tout them. And if it's your first job that you're looking after, you still have a lot to say for yourself, whether it's being a camp counselor, or working with disabled children, or working for the community, or Meals on Wheels. Anything contributes to the kind of person you are and the skills that you have in helping other people. One more thing that's very important for you to understand and to know is that there is a lot of literature and a lot of expectation that you will follow your passion. And ultimately, we all need to do that because work is an essential, important part of all our lives. And I think Kim made an excellent point when she said, making sure that you have the right partner. Well, at the turn of the 20th century, Sigmund Freud said that. He said it's about love and work and having a balance between them. You can't always get it right all the time at the same time, but at least with your career, there is some control of that. We are living in challenging times, and finding your passion right now may just not be the most important thing. But what is important is finding interesting work that can broaden you in some way. And while it might not be where you see yourself in 5 years, it could very possibly the pathway or segue into something that you're truly passionate about. But you may not even know what you're passionate about until you start trying new things. So, interesting work that broadens you, that's good enough. Following your passion, that'll happen too. But first steps. So, out of all of this, I have to give you some notes of encouragement. There were times in my career where I landed in the wrong spot, where I was with an organization that was misaligned with my values. And I felt that I couldn't leave because I had 9 years of university debt, and then I acquired a mortgage. But through all that time, I kept imagining a better future for myself, kept thinking about what are some of the ways outside of my job that will add dimension to me as an individual and where I can be a more interesting person so that I'm fully equipped to take on the next step. I never thought that I was stuck. And I think getting yourself out of the paradigm that your job is forever and that things are not going to change is not healthy and it's not realistic because there is always a better future and a better opportunity. This has been really wonderful having the opportunity to talk to all of you tonight. I will always be available after our evening to discuss anything that's on your mind. I'm happy to give you my email address and hope to have further conversations with you. In the meantime, good luck, stay safe, and stay healthy.
Thanks, Susan. Thanks, Kim, for sharing about your careers. Sounds like we've all reinvented ourselves and had to reinvent the wheel at some point or another during our lives. I'm just going to ask a bunch of questions here, and I do hope that people continue to type these questions. Again, I encourage you to type everything into the chat. The first question actually that's come up, we're going to go to Kim first, is how do you stay motivated, especially during the points in your career where you're uncertain?
Staying motivated is tough. When I'm uncertain, I always turn back to my art. So I take a step back and I get my hands dirty and I focus on the work instead of being in my head. So for me, that could be painting. Like I started off as a painter, and that's actually how I got into jewelry design. So I get my hands back into it because I think like a lot of us probably on this call, have a propensity to over-intellectualize things. But if you have work that you could actually, like if you're a writer, just start writing. Don't think about it, just start writing. If you're an artist, start painting. Do the actual work and meditate and visualize on that vision board that I told you to create. That's how I stay motivated, as I keep my head in the game. And I often will refer back to my vision board, because you have to stay the course of your vision. It's not always going to be glamorous and it's not always going to work out, but you have to keep your eye on your goal and just keep that vision board somewhere where you see it every day. My husband actually has his visions taped to the mirror in our bathroom. I have mine in my office and I look at it every single day. That's how I stay motivated.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Susan, what about for you?
Well, you know, I don't allow myself ever to be demotivated, because I feel that, you know, we all go through peaks and valleys in our careers, and that not everything can be perfect all the time. And during COVID, I've had a dip in my business. And you know, the year started off very buoyantly, and then assignments that I was supposed to have in New York and the UK got canceled or postponed to 2021. And all of a sudden I was left with a big black hole. And I think there are probably many participants tonight who feel the same way. And I started thinking about ways that I could fill that hole creatively, so that I would be still stimulated and I have new ways to meet client needs. And so I have been working on a book, and I've been working on modules and trying to connect with as many people as possible virtually to continue on the same path in a different way.
I think that's very similar to Kim. You seem to both to be very creative, and you both get back into why you're doing this and what you're doing fundamentally. I think for me, when I've been down, I think I don't have a vision board, but I certainly have read a ton of self-help books, especially when I was stuck in the insurance fields and feeling like I was going nowhere. So I would actually go into the bathroom every time I had to go to the bathroom, and I would look in the mirror and I would legitimately say things to myself like, I don't know if anyone has seen the movie The Help, but you know, like, I am kind, I am smart, I am important. And I would say these affirmations of whatever I feel true about me. And I am awesome, and I deserve to work with an amazing team and be on their shoulders and for them to be on my shoulders, and whatever that meant. And initially it's really uncomfortable. I'm sure we've all been there. It feels like you're talking to a stranger or about a stranger. But soon you start to adapt those feelings and those sayings and those attributes, and you start believing them to be, and they bring you back kind of. And I feel like for me, that really helps to motivate me when I'm in those moments. So thank you for sharing that. Another question has come in. Susan, we're going to start with you. How did you know it was the right time to leave a job or to change careers?
Okay, that's a good question. And by the way, I just want to affirm what you said. I think the power of self-talk is very powerful. And I have these little stickies that I put on my computer at days when, you know, someone's canceled on me or someone hasn't gone on a Zoom call. And I write, "You are smart. You're a good person." And then when I, you know, sometimes do these calls and I see all these wrinkles on my neck, I write, "You are beautiful," even if no one else knows that. So I really like that. Okay, can we get to the question again? I'm sorry.
Yes, no, you made us all laugh. We all need a laugh these days.
Okay.
How do you know, like, when it's time, I guess,
Yeah, okay, that's a
to
good
leave and
question.
make a change.
Okay, I'm going to give you only my personal examples. Is that okay?
Yes,
So
please.
in my first career, I was a social worker at a downtown hospital, and I was in my late 20s. I just finished my MSW, and I was happy, but I was sort of disquieted about what that would look like in my 40s. And because I thought I was a handmaiden to the doctors, and honestly, like, I didn't see myself growing. I saw myself doing the same thing repeatedly year after year. And I know it sounds really silly, but I went by a doctor's office, and there was this cartoon of a woman in a business suit around a boardroom of men. And all of a sudden that visual imagery stuck with me. And I said, that should be me. I had no idea. I was 25 years old, 24 years old. So all of a sudden I found myself writing my GMATs, which is extraordinary given that I cannot balance my checkbook and have no mathematical skills. But I actually got into, was an Ivy at the time, Western, sold all my worldly possessions and moved there. And then, believe it or not, 2 years later, found myself working in an engineering culture around that boredom with all these men. I thought, oh my God, all this came from a cartoon. But then roll the clock 14 years later, and I was tired of working in male monocultures. I had worked at Shell Oil, which actually was a really good experience, but I was like, women were like 9% female. I was working with engineers. I actually enjoyed the job, but it wasn't really my thing, nice Jewish girl from Montreal, whatever. Like, I didn't see that forever. And then I got hired to be Vice President of Organizational Development for MDS, which is used to be Canada's largest health and life science company. It's located in Etobicoke. And I was the only senior female on the management team reporting to the CEO. I think they hired me, frankly, for window dressing, because I looked the part, I had the credentials. But, in truth, while I was consulting to them after Shell closed its offices in Toronto, they were very good to me. They rolled the red carpet out. But as soon as I became part of the team, the dynamic changed, and no red carpet was out there for me. I was expected to be on that 24/7 shift, the same way the guys were. I had a husband commuting from New York, 2 daughters under the age of 5, and nanny issues. And it became untenable. But what mostly became untenable was that the values were misaligned for me in so many ways. I found the culture to be misogynistic, slightly anti-Semitic. I didn't feel that I was adding value. And when you enter your 40s, it really becomes a question of authenticity, right? Where can I add the most value and be myself? So I thought about that, and I referred earlier to my personal vision. I actually took the time it was painstaking, but I spent weeks doing this, underscoring my vision. What did I see myself doing? What did I want to be known for in organizations? And it was 2 things. It was facilitation and executive coaching. And once I had that vision, it took me weeks and weeks to get that in place. I was able to negotiate my exit with MDS. And fortunately, the stock was at $30 a share. So in return for my exit and my staying there till I got a replacement, I got all my money out. And then it went down to $8 a share. And then they went bankrupt. They
Good
sold
for you.
Yes. But I had a nest egg so that I wasn't financially dependent on my husband, David. And that was very important to me for all kinds of reasons. But all this to say, it took me a year of pounding that pavement, trying to create awareness about what an executive coach does, because we had no Canadian presence. And in the US, it was much more developed and even sophisticated, nothing here. And I thought the only thing that kept me going there was the reality of having to return to corporate life, and I wasn't going to do it. So I thought, I am going to make this happen for myself. And even though I'm not an aggressive marketer, it goes against my natural inclinations, I went out there and I made it happen because the alternative was sour. So in both cases, one, it was social work, was not intellectually inspired. It was flat for me career-wise. And working in corporations, I realized misalignment with my values, had no choice but to think of an alternative that really suited my skills and my value system.
Yeah, I think that resonates for me too. I think you touched upon something. I'm a mom. My kids are 4 and 6. I have 2 boys. I know Kim's a mom as well. Her kids are a little bit younger than mine. But when you go through these life stages, your values change. You change. And I think that you realize you like the hustle, but you want to be around for your kids, or you want to be home after school, or even though we feel now as with young children at home that they need us so badly because they're so little, but really I think from what I've heard from everybody older than me, you actually really need to be around in those high school years, right, to make sure that they don't get into as much trouble. They don't want us around, but we need to be around then. And so I think for me, it's been the same thing. I knew it was time to leave when I was stale. I'm really ambitious. I have opinions. Sometimes that rubs people the wrong way in the companies I've been at. So for me, it was when I wasn't getting movement, when I wasn't going anywhere, when I was getting a lot of no's, when I didn't have collaborative leaders anymore and collaborative leadership. Those were the times when I realized it was time to take that chance and to bet on myself. It's so cheesy, but really it's so scary to make that decision, but really betting on yourself is what pushes you and what grows you. Kim, do you have anything to add to that question in terms of how do you know when to leave and how do you know it's the right time?
Both of what you said has had a lot of resonance with me, but for me, I have a really hard time making changes, to be honest. Like I tend to get stuck, and I don't want to disappoint people. I don't want to let people down. But for me, the reason I make change usually is because I find I'm really not bringing my A game to the table. And when you don't bring your A game to the table, like you said, Jillian, like you're not going to get the results you want, and you're not going to have the impact that you want. So ultimately, I do end up stepping back after a certain time. I just don't make very quick decisions. So sometimes it takes me a little bit more time. But like you said, like if I'm getting stale in a place, I would leave. But I'm really happy now being my own boss, although it comes with challenges and all kinds of other things to think about when you're an entrepreneur. It's a whole new set of challenges. But there is a lot to be said for just being self-directed and not reporting to anyone, having the autonomy to just to go in my own direction. I'm finding that really, really empowering.
That leads me into actually another question that just came in, which is, as women, how do we navigate the pull towards being at home with your kids and pursuing your career? So I'm going to take this one first, if you guys don't mind. So for me, I had my first child in 2018. At the time, I was at the insurance company and I was able to take an extended mat leave, and my company topped me up. I hate to say it, I stayed at that company longer than I should have because of the mat leave. They topped me up to like 95% of my salary for like 5 months, and with a young family and a mortgage and car payments, etc. Toronto is expensive. I did. And so, and I gotta say, I also put my career second. I know that's a really ugly face. But I put myself second and on the back burner because I knew we wanted to have another child. And so even though I was miserable at the insurance company, I went back because I knew I wanted a second child. And that mat leave top up was certainly something that was beneficial. But I'll tell you, we decided to put our children in daycare, nanny daycare, staying home, being a stay-at-home mom or parent. It doesn't matter. As much time as you can give to your kids, they appreciate it. Having a break from your kids is super important too. I think it's good for everybody. That's why COVID's been so difficult for families or people with young children, because there's been no break. There's no downtime. We work, we eat, we play, we sleep everywhere in the same place. It's never easy. The struggle to juggle is very real. My kids are both in school now, and they used to ask why I can't come to be the lunch person or why I have to work. And I tell them the facts. Do you like going on vacation? Do you like it when we can buy new toys? Do you like being able to buy other presents at Hanukkah to donate to High Lifeline? And that puts it into perspective for them as to why mommy works. I'm very comfortable working. I want to work. It's something that's important to me. I don't know if you ladies feel the same. Do either of you want to jump in?
Well, something that Kim said that, that she married later. You did say that, didn't you, Kim?
Yes,
So
I did.
yeah, so me too. I married in my mid-30s at a time when most of the women married in their 20s and early 20s. And I think that really shaped me. And I'm sure that that for you too, that you're independent for so long. And so work became a fundamental part of your identity, right? And it certainly
Yes.
is mine. And I think, because I have a different perspective because I'm older than you, that work is extremely important. And when your kids leave, and you're an empty nester, if you don't have something that fulfills you, you will be bereft because they will leave and they will have lives on their own. And I know that it is very hard to balance, but I'm going to say a couple of things. One is that I never counsel young women to give up their careers entirely. I counsel them to find some kind of balance by either changing jobs to family-friendly cultures or by having an alternative work schedule. I think that you add so much value to your children if they see that you're working, and all the research would support me, that kids who have working mothers, part-time included, tend to be much more independent and goal-oriented, which is what we really want for our daughters. And I remember, you know, when my paychecks used to come in from companies, my daughters didn't understand the numbers, but I would show that to them. And, you know, for all their faults, I would have to say that my daughters are extremely independent, and both of them have very interesting out-of-the-box careers. And that's because I wanted to let them know that work is very fulfilling. Getting back to, you know, okay, it's a different generational thing. I only had 16 weeks maternity leave when I was at Shell Oil. Now it's up to a year. I would encourage all mothers, especially if you're being topped up like you, Jillian, that, you know, to take their whole maternity leave. That's my biggest regret, is that I had to go marching back to work full time and I was just so unready. So take that time with your kids, but don't underestimate the value of fulfilling work in some way while you're raising your children. You will be so grateful when your children leave the house that you have this purpose in your life where you're still relevant and contributing to society. Because all the indicators on female satisfaction and happiness have nothing to do with traditional notions, believe it or not, of family and children. They all have to do with making a contribution to society and being financially independent.
Okay. I think we only have time for two more really quick questions and answers. So I'm going to ask one, which is about networking, where to begin, how to begin, especially in COVID age. I'm a recruiter. I'll tell you that you need to talk to every single person that is in your life, whether that be your siblings' friends, your parents' friends, your cousins' friends. It doesn't matter who, the person at the grocery store. And you need to tell that person, you know, hey, I'm looking for a job. You never know when something is going to come back at you. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know who that connection is going to be. And you just never know. And again, it goes back to taking that chance on yourself. I once, true story, I was at a charity event called Breakfast of Champions one year, and I invited Fred Van Fleet, the Toronto Raptor, yes, him, to my son's 4th birthday party. I walked right up to him. I mean, he couldn't come, but we had a 10-minute conversation, and it was lovely. And I got to tell you, like, if you don't try, you don't ask, you're never going to know. So the worst that's going to happen is someone's going to say no. The worst that's going to happen is someone's going to say, I'm sorry, I don't have anything for you at the moment, but maybe in a couple of months, or but maybe I can introduce you to my colleague or my wife or my friend. And it's that but that you're looking for. It's that, you know, that introduction. It's that, hey, let me put myself out for you, because everyone's been helped at some point in their lifetime. So in terms of networking and where to begin, start now and start today. And on that note, I would also like to say that I added all of these attendees to my LinkedIn because I'm a recruiter. And I was disappointed that more than half of these people who have attended tonight don't have a LinkedIn profile. So in my world, LinkedIn is everything. If you're not on LinkedIn, you might as well not exist. Your employer or potential prospective employer will absolutely look you up on social media. They go to LinkedIn as #1. You need to be on LinkedIn. Get on LinkedIn. Connect, connect, connect. Ask people for a Zoom call in COVID times. Ask people for a coffee. Have a phone call. Kim and I were just chatting the other day. Do it. You never know where things are going to land you and how to do it. Again, the worst that's going to happen is they're going to say no, but you're no worse off because you already don't have that person in your life. Do you
Jillian,
guys
if
have
I could
anything?
jump
Yeah,
in there,
please.
yeah. So I 100% agree with everything you said. Just two more points to add to what you're
Please.
saying. Number one, community is one of the best ways to network. Volunteerism is one of the best ways to network. I've met some of my closest friends and I've hired people who started off as volunteers. So please volunteer. UJA is an amazing organization for volunteerism. There's an incredible network. UJA Genesis is a wonderful network. And then I would also encourage you to try to get a mentor. And a mentor is a wonderful thing to have. I've had many mentors in my career, and if anyone wants to reach out to me to help with mentorship, I'm happy to do that. It's really important in your career. Susan, I'm sure you've had wonderful mentors too. It's really important to get mentors along your journey at different stages, and never be shy to ask. Again, like Jillian said, the worst thing someone can say is no. But mentors can open doors for you and can be just a wealth of information and wisdom and opportunity for you. So please reach out to people to be mentors that you admire in the fields that you're interested in pursuing.
I couldn't agree more. And with that, we're actually out of time, unfortunately. I know the three of us can go on and on forever, but I'm going to hand this over to Perry to take us home.
Okay, thank you so much. That was wonderful. Thank you to the participants for joining us this evening. We hope you found the discussion informative, inspiring, and helpful in providing direction in your future decisions. We know the pandemic has impacted all of us in numerous ways. For many, it's personal job loss and the resulting financial and mental health strains. As Melissa mentioned, the UJA annual campaign this year is rooted in two core goals. Firstly, ensuring no community members turned away from our social service agencies due to a lack of resources. Secondly, ensuring no Jewish child or teen becomes disconnected from essential Jewish experiences due to the financial crisis. If you or someone you know is in need, please do not hesitate to reach out to UJA. If you can help with a donation or you're able to volunteer, please contact any UJA professional who can let you know how to lend a helping hand and shape the future of our community. In support of JAX Toronto and Chastai Kaduri, our Young Women's Leadership, in partnership with our UJA Genesis team, are in the midst of launching a hands-on volunteer initiative we call We Need Your Help, period. The high cost of feminine hygiene products impacts low-income and vulnerable members of our community, often causing them to miss school or work and compounding existing stressors. We're collecting menstrual hygiene products such as tampons, sanitary napkins, and menstrual cups to help those who cannot afford these basic necessities. If you're interested in getting involved, please reach out to Rachel, whose email address is added to the chat. She can share more information with you. I'd like to add a final thank you to our corporate sponsor, BMO. We're grateful for your support of UJA Women's Philanthropy. This brings us to the end of the webinar. Have a wonderful evening.